You're listening to Weather with Enthusiasm. You're listening to Weather with Enthusiasm. It's Tuesday, May 31st. We have something absolutely remarkable that took place, and I have this on a different podcast as well, which I thought was being recorded live. This was a picture in regards to a picture and reality, a picture that's been up on this podcast for about a week already, at least the one that's coming in from Anchor, and probably there should be a little picture by each of these podcasts individually, not the picture on Weather with Enthusiasm on Spreaker, the main picture, but the pictures associated with each little podcast and the main picture on the podcast on Anchor, Weather with Enthusiasm. It's been a picture that's been up since May 26th. The picture is a picture of a screenshot, which some stuff that I wrote in. The screenshot shows a temperature of 59 degrees in Boston, Massachusetts for today, Tuesday, May 31st. Again, this screenshot was taken either on May 25th, on Wednesday, or Thursday, May 26th. The picture was put up May 26th on Thursday, and it is a picture, it is a screenshot, a picture of a screenshot of what the European computer model shows from the windy.com app, what the European computer model shows at 3-hour intervals on Tuesday, May 31st for various cities. So we have, which it says the 3 o'clock p.m. Central Time, daylight time, which would be 4 o'clock on the East Coast, which takes us back to the 2 o'clock p.m. interval. Let's just, to make it simple, 2 o'clock p.m., the 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time temperatures, the 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time temperatures in Boston, Massachusetts, it shows that it's 59 degrees. Some area must have been 57 degrees because I wrote in 57. The actual thing shows 59. And for Poughkeepsie, New York, it shows an afternoon high temperature, a high temperature of 93 degrees. Not necessarily the 2 o'clock p.m. temperature, but the high temperature, 93 degrees. And I wrote in the 2 o'clock p.m. temperature was also 93 degrees. We take a look today at the 2 o'clock p.m. temperatures. The temperature in Boston, it was 60, but let's say like this. The Boston area saw a high temperature today, hit 83 degrees. The previous podcast said 82 degrees. That wasn't correct. 7:54 a.m. the temperature was 81 degrees, and by 8:54 a.m. the temperature already dropped into the 60s. So we saw in Boston, we saw crashing temperatures even this morning already, with temperatures dropping rapidly, but temperatures did hit 83 degrees before that happened. Temperatures crashed at some point. The temperature did hit 59 degrees. It's currently officially 60 degrees. We did see crashing temperatures to 59 degrees. So if we go back to the European computer model, we go back to that Thursday, May 26th. So there was a lot of accuracy to that model. The accuracy is in regards to what the high temperature was expected to be in Boston, which I did not have a screenshot of that. I don't believe I do have a screenshot of that. I'm going to take a look. But especially in regards to the crashing temperatures, how temperatures would be crashing into the upper 50s during the afternoon. Now, if you look at reality, it looks like what happened is the temperatures went crashing this morning. Temperatures went crashing mid-morning, and I think the European computer model didn't show crashing temperatures until early afternoon. So we have to double check that if there is a screenshot of what it was forecasting last Thursday. But either way, let's say it wasn't forecasting early afternoon. Let's say it was morning. Let's say it is a few hours off and when the front went through. When you're looking at a 5-day in advance forecast, this might have even been 6 days. So it's very, very accurate. There's no question about it. Very, very accurate. Okay, now, what do we do with the Thursday? So it was pointed out, and this is really where I want to explain where the GFS model comes in over here. So if the European computer model is so accurate, so the question is, why do we need the GFS model? So first of all, the way to get the best answer to that question is to ask someone who's been working with these models for many, many years in to ask someone like meteorologist Tom Skilling, something like that. But from the experience that I have, I want to explain exactly the purpose of the GFS model. So we pointed out on the podcast last week that the temperature, according to the European computer model, would hit 100 degrees in Massachusetts this Thursday. Now, at that point, it was already 10 days out. The European computer model is known for being the most accurate, especially 3 to 5 days out. I think even less than 3 days out, it's very accurate, but especially 3 to 5 days out. And in the Midwest, we've seen a lot of accuracy even for the 10-day forecast. But it has a reputation, especially for medium range, what's called medium range. I don't know what's better when you get to past that, whether the GFS or the European. But this is where the GFS model comes in. So let's say the GFS model was forecasting temperatures to be in the 90s for Thursday. Okay, Thursday. We're 10 days out. This was last week. Okay, and the European computer model is forecasting high temperatures to be in the upper 90s, but a few locations hitting 100 degrees. So what that does is the GFS model is informing me. To me, again, you ask the professional, you could ask, there might be different answers to this, but to me, what's happening is like this. The GFS model is informing me that the European computer, I could have high confidence in what the European computer model is forecasting in terms of the synoptic setup. In regards to the air mass that's going to be over the area, the basic setup, I could have high confidence that the European computer model is accurate because we have two models. They're made up of, there's different information getting put into these models, and they're both coming out with the conclusion that there's going to be a hot air mass over the Northeast, over the Massachusetts area. This, again, this is if. It's not happening. Anyone who's happens to only hear this part of the recording, it's not going to be 100 this Thursday, okay? But we're saying last week. But what happened last week is you have the European computer model forecasting temperatures to hit 100 degrees in parts of Massachusetts on Thursday, which of course, even if it's a small town, if I could find any town, or if any town that could hit 100, that's where we're going to focus, because that's going to generate the most excitement, and it will be accurate. We're not just saying 100 for the sake of saying 100. There's going to have to be good reason for it to be accurate, such as dry moisture over there. There's very dry moisture over there, so it makes sense that temperatures would be hotter over there than other places on the East Coast. It also makes sense for Baltimore to be hotter because of the downslope winds off the mountains just to the west. That makes sense as well. All right, now, so the thing is, however, last week the GFS model, as we pointed out, was not forecasting temperatures to be in the 90s. In fact, they were forecasting unseasonably cool weather with high temperatures more similar to what the crashing temperatures were today. Now, interestingly enough, the European computer model is now forecasting the same thing the GFS model was forecasting. So one could say that at least when it comes to forecasts beyond 5 days, and in this particular situation, perhaps because it's the East Coast, perhaps because it was beyond 5 days, or perhaps because the GFS model may not be too bad after all, the GFS model did get that one right. We're assuming that whatever the models are saying today is what's actually going to be happening, which is, since all the models are saying the same thing for Thursday, we could probably assume that. Okay, so now, so what the GFS model did is it gave us high confidence in the European computer model. Once we have the confidence in the European computer model, so I would pay more attention to the European computer model. Now, so then the question is, where does the human being come into this? Where does is it all about robots and models? So people come into it, and you'll know that people play a variable when you hear that local meteorologists are always the best. It was all about numbers and all about models and all about that. Local meteorologists would not have a reputation for being the best. Apparently, the human being, the person, plays a role in this as well. The meteorologist plays a role in this as well. There's, for many reasons, if you want to figure that out, just read a forecast discussion from the National Weather Service, and you'll see that things are not so simple. The models, it's not really as simple. It's just a bunch of numbers. But there's certain things the models don't pick up. A person, like for example, there's certain things about St. Louis. If someone lived in St. Louis for many years, you'll know that Lambert International Airport, for some reason, is a little bit higher than all the other places. Sometimes it's known that these models happen to be too warm, happen to be too cold. This particular city happens to always reach this certain temperature, something like that. That's where the person comes into mind. Okay, so now, last week, we mentioned on a podcast that there's consistency between the GFS model and the European computer model through Tuesday. After Tuesday, there's no longer any consistency, and therefore we have reason to lower our confidence after Tuesday. I think a lot of the forecasters, and even me, there was confidence for Wednesday for the Midwest. It just seemed like we're going to get 4 days of heat out of this upcoming wave of warmth. In fact, even for Thursday. But let's just say, if I would have taken the GFS model more seriously, so Wednesday and beyond probably should not have even been in the forecast, especially for the East Coast. Once you see the models are going wild, so then it's time to say that we really don't know exactly. We don't know what's going to be happening. We no longer could have confidence in the European computer model because the GFS model should be able to have an accurate synoptic setup. The setup should be accurate, just the details are not accurate. Sometimes the storm track is not 100% the same as the European computer model. Sometimes the GFS model just gets it right. So the accuracy should have only gone up to Tuesday, and actually, we're going to see the heat is coming to an end tonight here in the Midwest, and Baltimore gets another day of 90s for tomorrow. Then it comes to an end. The 90s come to an end for Baltimore. They have one more day of 90s in Baltimore. The Philadelphia area and areas north, so really areas to the north of Baltimore, today is it for the 90s. Today is it for the 90s, some 80s around for tomorrow, and then we drop lower than that after that. So the GFS model, for those that take the GFS model seriously, one of the roles of the GFS model is to inform us whether the amount of confidence we are to have in the European computer model in terms of its synoptic setup. Once we know that it's in the general range, it's right. So then the European computer model, so far, it seems like that gets the attention. And again, to get a better answer, ask the meteorologists, especially in the local areas, the National Weather Service, those that work with these things 24/7 for years, the GFS model, the European computer model. But another thing with it, so that actually makes a difference in the forecast. Here's another thing. The GFS model has done some interesting stuff for us. Even if it's not giving us an accurate forecast, it could create an awareness. By doing the wild stuff that it does, it brings an awareness. Things that would have been overlooked all of a sudden come into the public eye. There's all of a sudden an awareness of something that might happen. If the GFS model takes, like what it did in Denver, Colorado, it takes a snowstorm and blows it up to 60 inches, even 7 days in advance already. So the European computer model isn't doing that. But what you've done is you now have a team of meteorologists, you have the whole country monitoring this thing, because there is a chance the GFS model can get it. It's happened before. But basically, it's probably being dismissed, and everyone knows that's not going to happen. But still, it has grabbed. We know a big storm's coming. The European computer model was also forecasting snow, just not that much. So it grabs the attention of everyone, and that was the name of the game in informing us about the hurricane. Last week on May 26th, again, that podcast towards the end, I mentioned a hurricane. I didn't think anybody was talking about it. So we mentioned the hurricane on the podcast, and it's just something that was only noticed because of the blow up of the GFS model. It would have gone unnoticed had the European computer model been the only model that was looked at. The European computer model was also forecasting a strong storm. The thing about the European computer model is that the storm was expected to develop way too close to the coast to become a hurricane. That's what I remember seeing. But the GFS model had the thing blowing up well before the coast, and it brought this thing into attention. And it brought this awareness, and therefore people were aware of this. I would imagine it's not just this podcast. I would imagine there must have been others that were aware of the possibility of a hurricane near Mexico on Sunday and Monday. This hit land yesterday on Monday. There must have been others who were aware of it, and it showed the thing quickly weakening. Well, yeah, the thing's quickly weakening. First of all, it's moving on land. Secondly, it's running into a mountain range, which is right there, and that's what these things do. It happens to be, this is, I think, the strongest hurricane in the month of May on the Pacific Ocean. I think I read that recently. So, we have here probably some tools and information to create an accurate forecast. So far, what we have here is that the European computer model is great, is the way to go, but if that's only if the GFS model is forecasting the same synoptic setup. If it's forecasting a different, meaning if the GFS model has the Northeast under an air mass from the Atlantic Ocean, the whole place, not just Boston, the whole place, it showed everywhere, is being taken over with cool air for Thursday. The European computer model is showing 100 degrees. So then the GFS model is playing a crucial role in, basically it's telling forecasters, end your forecast after Tuesday. Now, unfortunately, in my opinion, it's unfortunate. There's whatever the protocol has been set up to do, that's what everyone continues to do. And, the protocol is 7-day forecast or a 5-day forecast. Sometimes the forecasters are not ready to make a 7-day forecast. Sometimes they're ready to make a 10-day forecast. It all depends on the situation. And there have been times where forecasters are not even ready to make a 1-day forecast, and a lot of the perceived inaccuracies come from the lack of communication and the confidence that forecasters have in what's about to be happening, especially when it comes to snowstorms, because that's very noticeable and it's difficult to forecast. Anyways, I wish everyone a great day. Thank you for listening. And, the main weather stuff we didn't touch upon, what's going on in this country, the severe weather outbreak, tornado chances here in the Midwest. Tonight, thunderstorms moving probably through the Chicago area, especially the St. areas to our south. We have not touched upon that. Perhaps we will later on today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.